Hello, I'm Enzo, and this is Kotama and Academy Citadel. Recently, I've been getting a ton of game offers, and I hope to make videos on all of them in time. But Kotama and Academy Citadel caught my attention immediately with the visuals, the characters, and the release date. I knew this would be a perfect chance for all parties if I could get this video out right after it's released. This video is obviously going to spoil, well, all of the game, especially near the end, so be warned, because I did manage to 100% clear the game, and I'm super proud of that. Kotama and Academy Citadel, which I'll shorten to Kotama for the rest of the run, just to make it simple, is a 3D side-scrolling Metroidvania. I haven't really played games like this before, so naturally I went with the recommended difficulty, but that was a massive mistake. I will say now, this game isn't made for first-time or casual players. Everything would have been so much better and more fun if I just went for the story difficulty. That's actually what I recommend for most players, and you'll see why very soon. It doesn't help me that this game was made for controllers when I prefer keyboard and mouse controls. It is possible to play on M and K, but it's a bit more clunky than controller, and not completely intended either. I'm not bad on controller, just nowhere near as good as mouse and keyboard. But I did manage to get pretty good on controller, especially near the end. In this game, we play as Kotama, a transfer student to Academy Citadel, and our goal, like many others, is to achieve the Caramel Star, which is like the highest award, so we're going to need everyone's votes to be able to get it. Starting out, we get some Luminite, which is the main currency, but it also restores my Chrono Shell, aka Shield. I've never seen a mechanic like this before, but it's super interesting, until you lose tons of your currency because you need to heal. When your Chrono Shell runs out, you have a sort of health gate mechanic called Life Jade, where you get one last hit before you die, which is also your last chance to heal your Chrono Shell back. You do get an upgrade to both of these later on, and instead of Health Gate like it is now, Life Jade will turn into more of like extra lives. After figuring out the most basic controls, I managed to acquire my first weapon, the Umbrella Spear. It sounds pretty ridiculous, but it has several uses. Its main attack deals damage and applies Chrono Fluid, which, like everything in this game, is centered around, and Kotama is extremely proficient in wielding it. Chrono Fluid can stack when you damage enemies with it, and it can be detonated by the Umbrella's secondary attack to deal tons of damage, and heal your Chrono Shell, which is very nice. On top of that, I can use it as a glider, which will let me reach new areas. Unfortunately, no matter how much I try, there's not much I can actually reach for now, since I don't have the other powers I need unlocked. Next up, I learn how to parry, which is a crucial mechanic to all fights in this game. You can parry most attacks, even if they don't give you a signal, but some attacks, especially boss ones later on, can't be parried. After that, we learn about temporal coils. This also turns the game into a bit of a puzzle on top of everything else, and I'll explain more on how these things work later on. In the next room, I meet an enemy, which is also a later boss. Then Chizuru. As you can tell by the display cases, I'm going to need 4 different items from 4 bosses to go wherever that elevator leads. But this is nice, an objective I'm going to be working towards. I know that I can crouch, so I was hoping to go left here, but unfortunately I need another ability that I'll get later on. Throughout this game, you'll also find a bunch of different doors that require later items and skills to unlock, like this one. Once I got a real checkpoint, I had a bad feeling. Of course, it's a boss. Checkpoint before a boss, absolute classic. And getting my butt kicked instantly should have been a sign this game, or at least this difficulty, is not for me at all. Again, this is just the medium difficulty, and it's still this tough for me. But I tried and tried again until I just barely managed to beat the first boss. And you know my reward, the arena not opening up. That's my luck in a nutshell. For how amazing this game is, it does still have quite a few bugs. Of course, they might be fixed by the time this video is released, but who knows. But of course, I would get the one where even after I beat the boss, I just can't continue and have to quit the game. Now that I understand all of my abilities better, I was able to beat Natasha. Reading that name gives me Atomic Heart flashbacks. And I got a Temporalis. I'm definitely going to butcher like 90% of the unique words I say, but I can't help it. And these are used to upgrade your weapons. After that, I entered a mysterious door and unlocked the dash skill, which will let me dodge attacks, dodge traps, and enter new areas. We're likely all screaming at me for skipping this, but I didn't know about it at the time. I thought it was just more dialogue or lore. That machine actually had a fragment that will increase my life jades once I got 3. But still, I should have collected it. I actually have no clue why I didn't, even while editing this. Soon after that, I managed to stumble upon another boss and got 3-shot. Wonderful. In the fashion of games with difficulties like this, I managed to, well, get good and finally beat her second try? Yeah, that's right. All of the characters in this game are girls. I'm used to characters with masks being guys, but no, the Sailfish gang are all girls. It's just like every other character in this game. After this fight, I got yet another ability, Double Jump. Now I have 2 insanely helpful combat and exploration skills. After some more exploring, I wanted to do this platforming section. Needless to say, I suck at this. I really hate platforming, and there's a reason I don't play games like this. I'll keep saying it, but I should have just started with the story difficulty. You only take 1 damage instead of a 3rd in this difficulty, and you get to skip most of these sections. There's still a few that you can't skip for some odd reason, but hey, I'll take anything I can. The artificial gem I get from the end of this is another weapon enhancement material. With my new abilities and glide, I can actually reach the other section of this main hall, and of course, reach a new fight. One quick thing before this next boss. I'll mention it during the fight, you'll see it pretty obviously. I actually got to play this game early, so the game hasn't been like 100% flushed out, and there are still quite a few bugs. I'm guessing those will be fixed by the time it's fully released. Just wanted to note that. Any bugs in here are likely patched by now, or at least I sure hope so. I'll just go ahead and show the attempt where I actually won this fight, since I lost several times trying to beat this boss. So, this fight obviously got very bugged, and I managed to get ahead in the level, which is pretty nice, but you know, the boss is still alive. We all know that I absolutely used this opportunity to cheese the heck out of this fight. I'm not sorry at all, because this was a stupidly difficult fight. Again, just go story difficulty. It was so much more fun, but I'll get to that later on. You're supposed to meet Juliet, the student council president, after the fight, but you know. Anyways, I got a tiny upgrade from that fight and a whole new area to discover. The Art Academy, just like all the other places, has all sorts of new enemies, platforming, and eventually new characters to meet. After some exploring, I managed to find this awakening orb, but its only use is in this area. Naturally, I happened to find another boss, and I got beaten horribly by a freaking painting. This is a brand new type of humiliation. Now that I know how these abominations work, I managed to beat this thing's second try. Even though you can parry their scream, the attack happens so often that it's pretty much impossible. I know I haven't explained the combat too much. I'm hoping it kind of speaks for myself. I mean, my skill really doesn't. I really sucked at the beginning here, but I was hoping to parry as many attacks as possible, especially this scream, because the more attacks you can parry, it actually coats them in more chrono fluid, so you can do way more damage to them. But yeah, you can't really parry that one, you should just run away from it. Right after that, I met Ray, the navigator. Also, she's technically the conductor of this massive train called the Arcadia. This is your home base and allows you to quickly travel to stations in different areas. We also get the Rewinder, so I can teleport back from anywhere, except, in combat. This is a great time to explain the temporal coils. Whenever I use the Rewinder or interact with the coil in Arcadia, it actually resets your temporal coil count and respawns all of the enemies. The temporal coils decrease by 1 every time you enter a new level, by traveling through a door, not counting, out of the station, which is nice. You can also go back to the level you were just in without using any coils, in case you forgot something. Temporal coils are required to unlock certain areas and actually make the enemies more difficult the lower amount you have. Talking to Ray again, she gave me a memo card. This is one of my favorite mechanics in the game, since it lets you make a loadout of different buffs and stuff like that, buffs and some skills in this little grid, where you have to rotate the pieces to fit your size limit. I've never seen anything like this before, but I think it's super cool. I really like it. I also forgot to introduce Nito, who has some neat looking hair. The pun was not intended originally, but I kept it in the script because I liked it. Right out of the station is the main exhibition hall with 3 girls in stasis tanks. I can use that awakening orb I got earlier to unlock one, and naturally, I chose the left one first. Oh my! Coco is part of the disciplinary council, along with her sisters. Based on her design and expression, her type is definitely a Mesugaki, aka Brat. It's a shame she doesn't do much, because I really like her character type and design. Which also makes me wish this game had actual voice lines. Yeah, sadly, there's no character voices in this game. I mean, it makes sense, especially for the price, but I'm very used to anime characters always having voice lines. To be fair, I haven't played many anime games, but still. I happened to come across another boss, Discus Hurler. I know this is like the theater mannequin, I have no clue what they're actually called. Again, giving me Atomic Heart vibes with the M4D-5, the Mads. Anyways, you can probably guess how this fight went. Yeah, I got beaten instantly. It's actually not even funny how bad I am right now, but I managed to get better the next time. I think something I've forgotten to mention at this point, you see that little orb on the left side of the arena? That's actually something that appears if you die or when you use the Rewinder, and when you combo it with XXY, it gives you a full heal and gives you more life chains, which is very nice. The single best part about this is the fact there's actually a door right outside of the arena. Of course, we all know what this door is, and that means I've unlocked another ability, which is very exciting. This ability lets me wall jump, but only on specific marked walls with either flowers or some other stuff in other areas. This allows me to reach all sorts of new places and hidden things, but most important of all, allows me to explore even more of the map to the left of the beginning. Do you guys remember the beginning? There was one of these walls that I couldn't actually go up, but now I can finally go through that, which is very exciting. On top of that, I happened to find this painting, which is like the secret collectible thingy for this area, I guess. All of the areas have their own unique, side missions you have to do for the place, and this one does involve collecting all the paintings. Actually, there's another side thing, so maybe it's one of them. Yeah, it's just one of the many collectibles in this game. At some point, I found another one of the awakening orbs, and this time I decided to go to the right. I guess it kind of makes some sense saving the middle for last. At least that was my logic, I guess. Anyways, this is Yi Yi. It's gonna sound weird no matter how I try to pronounce her name, just because of my English accent. That's kinda dumb. Nowhere near as interesting as her sister. As a matter of fact, it appears that she enjoyed being in that hibernation pod. Honestly, I can't blame her for enjoying sleep. I also found this part of the map that I really liked because these things in the background jumped out at me as enemies. So I thought that was pretty cool. These statues are also super interesting, well, because I can cheese them like this, which is very nice, but you can push them around and use their heads as platforms to jump on. That's how you have to get over there. Even though you're supposed to push them a bit closer, yeah, I got that super lucky jump. A little while later, I managed to find the final Awakening Orb, and now I can get the last sister, which is Chloe. I mean, interesting name because of her sister's names. I thought it'd be something similar, but alright. She's got a really good design. All three sisters have been imprisoned by Clara, which is going to be the next boss. I mean, we can probably all tell that. So let's not waste any more time and get right into the suffering. I found this other room right before the arena, but unfortunately I can't do anything in here. This is definitely for way later on in the game. Despite my gear being the exact same as before, Clara's fight was oddly easy. Well, most of the time. You see, she's the first boss to have 2 phases, which is pretty terrifying. The first phase is actually super easy because you have 4 targets to attack. Which means if your aim is good, or you have a great weapon, you guys will see that eventually, you can actually hit multiple of these spheres at once and deal a ton of damage during this phase. On top of that, I really like the theme of this place. It is insanely good, like all the other music in this game, of course. Overall, especially because this is an early game fight, it wasn't that difficult. I'm just still not that great at the game. But once we got to phase 2, when Clara actually joins the fight, things get a whole lot more difficult, and I eventually lost. It was a great attempt though. I went exploring even more to hopefully get something that I could use to help me with that Clara fight, and guess what? It just so happens I managed to stumble upon a brand new weapon. That's pretty awesome. Oddly enough, this is a whip hammer. A bizarre combination to say the least, but it looks pretty freaking awesome. The single best part of it is how I can actually use it to break that terrain on the bottom. I've seen those all over the place, but I can finally get through them, which is super exciting. It also has all sorts of crazy attacks I'll probably never be able to master. I mostly just like it because, well, it's a new weapon and it lets me explore new areas. The most important thing to know about it is that it requires some serious height to actually break these things. This will be obvious in a lot of puzzle areas and stuff like that, where you absolutely have to get up super high and then slam down to break this thing. Still, a very cool find. Alright, I should really mention some other super important stuff. I have definitely not done anywhere near enough exploring in this game. I've already missed so many things. Most important of all is actually in the central area, on one of the lower areas. You can actually rescue this girl named Saya. She occupies the room to the left of Nito here, and she's a shopkeeper. She sells all sorts of really good stuff, and yeah, she's pretty important to find. So that's the main issue. I lost out on a lot of good stuff, including weapon enhancement materials there, so big brain play there. And second of all, I only now realize that I can actually upgrade my weapon further with all of these materials. I don't know how I've been that stupid this entire time and haven't figured that out, but yeah, I could have been stronger all along. Even though I upgraded my skills a little bit here, I really should have bought the next tier of the weapon. For some reason, I really thought the tiers were locked behind like enemies or bosses, but no, as long as you have all of the materials, you can just straight up upgrade your weapon. That's why I've been so weak this entire time. I've literally been handicapping myself because of my own stupidity. I can't believe it. I also discovered this new area thanks to my new weapon, and let me just say, it's a little bit terrifying, honestly. First of all, there is a checkpoint here that tells me there's absolutely going to be a boss here later on. It's a long story on how you actually unlock this boss. It's at the absolute end of the game. But yeah, this place is pretty terrifying, I have to say. And the Genesis. That is a very ominous name. What's also fascinating is that Kotama says she's been here before in a previous loop of time. So yeah, I guess we'll figure that out at the end. Thanks to my wall jump ability, I started exploring over into this section of the map. I realize now at the bottom there's a breakable wall. That's what kind of sucks about watching this all back. I can actually see like so many things I missed on the first time around. But to be fair, you kind of have to know what you're looking for. So there is always that. Anyways, this is the Biology Academy. It deals with all sorts of like food and animals and plants and stuff like that. Technically not animals, I think they are all plants, whatever. This is a pretty neat place. I really like the design and of course the characters. I guess I haven't really mentioned the characters you see in the background. They're just all standard schoolgirls, but every area has their own unique outfits. And I have to say, this area is obviously the best. I mean, maid outfits. How can you go wrong with that? Anyways, the next character we meet is Flora. Flora isn't technically the most important character here, but she will come in handy for one of the side missions later on. There's actually a couple of them here. There's a ton of stuff to do in this map, but we'll get to that eventually. This entire mission requires us to find and help out Claire. The primary issue is that, well, I never found her until near the end. Also, you see those two girls chatting to the right? The real culprit is Among Us. I can't believe it. It's hilarious. Anyways, you can see Flora in the room down there. You know the stupidest part? Can you guess where Claire is? Claire is literally in the room right beneath her. Yeah, I can see it. There's a breakable wall right there. You just have to know to break that wall, Claire's in there, and you can start that whole mission. I could have sworn I saw something about asking in Arcadia about Claire, but no, she's literally just there. Well, that's good to know now at least. As always, this area adds all sorts of new and obnoxious enemies. First of all, you've got plants on the ceiling that drip fluid every so often that can damage you. It's super annoying, especially when you're doing puzzles. Then you have that thing, which can give other enemies like an invincible shield for a little bit. That's incredibly annoying. That thing at the bottom like jumps at you and has ranged projectiles. They all suck to deal with. On top of that, I happened to find yet another boss, the Catcher in the Wheat Field. That's actually a pretty funny name. This is a shark boss, and it is incredibly difficult, as you can probably see. I was hoping to parry it when it's in the ground, but that's nearly impossible to do. Somehow, I actually managed to beat this boss first try, despite how the fight looked at the beginning. The best part is that this is another segment that unlocks a new ability, which is always super exciting. Unfortunately, it won't let me get through that great looking door that I saw earlier. However, this will let me reach even more new areas, which is very exciting. This is called Tracked. Yeah, I'm just gonna call it Grapple because I completely forgot that name the entire time. Yeah, to me it's always just been Grapple. This allows me to dash using these points all around the map. This is pretty cool. It lets me get to new areas, and it's included in some boss fights for extra mobility, and, well, required to dodge some attacks. You should probably have figured that out by now. Now that I have a decent upgrade to all of my gear, I decided to finally head back to beat Clara. I'm still terrified at this fight, but at the same time, I'm far more confident now. Thanks to my new weapon, the first phase is way easier than before. Since this thing has way better range, I can hit all of these stage devices at once, which makes beating this phase way easier than before. And the whip just does more damage by default, so I really like it. I almost can't believe, watching all this back, that I've managed to survive so many fights, considering all the close calls I've had. It's kind of ridiculous. Oh yeah, I totally forget that all the weapons have like different parry abilities. I would have to say that this one has the best parry because it protects your entire character. The other two weapons I think only have like one direction or something like that. I don't completely remember. But that first phase was an absolute breeze compared to last time. However, we all know what happens next. The second phase of the boss. Yeah, it's gonna get pretty bad from here. But thankfully, I understand this fight a whole lot more since I've done it a few times at this point, and somehow I managed to get the perfect heals and actually survive this fight, which is very nice. I know I'm going to speed up a lot of these fights, but I have to say the music in this game is also really good. Especially this fight. It's like oddly calming because it's, like a theater performance for such an intense fight. So it almost doesn't match, but at the same time, it's really good. I think the combination of a new weapon and some more experience has made me way better at parrying than before. Like, I've managed to parry a good portion of the attacks you're supposed to, which is pretty incredible. Of course, that doesn't mean this fight was easy in the slightest. This was insanely stressful for me. You guys can see how many times I had to heal throughout this. Either way though, I'm just glad I finally managed to beat her. That was ridiculous. Oh, and by the way, no, we did not beat the actual Clara. This was like a doll, or a mechanical doll. I guess there's an actual doll back there. Either way, you get the point. That is not the real her, and long story short, we'll figure out where the real one is at the end. That's when I did all the exploring. Also, dang, look at that. When you beat some bosses like this, the big important ones, you get to see illustrations of them. I'm like, dang, that's some good art right there. I mean, you already won me over with the 2D and 3D styles, but dang, those illustrations are good. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, every time you unlock one of the keepsakes, well, you don't have to turn it in, you can actually just wait until the end. But either way, once you've defeated the boss, you actually get a special ability from it. In this case, I think the special ability allows me to hang on to the walls I can climb, so I don't fall down anymore, which is very nice, especially for the difficult platforming sections. So I appreciate that ability. Another super cool thing is how I got back to this cat that we saw at the beginning in the right time, which is cool because now you can interact with it. You see, this is where it's important to have Saya because you need to buy cat food from her. When you get the cat food, you unlock the cats, they go back to Arcadia, and eventually they'll give you special bonuses, memo cards, and stuff like that. They're just another collectible, but still very helpful. Of course, I don't have Saya in this playthrough. One of the other things you guys may or may not have noticed is how beautiful the graphics of this game look. I mean, they're not, crazy like ray tracing or anything like that, but I think it's actually better to have a simple style like this that still looks really freaking good. Of course, the graphics are all maxed out, and it wasn't even that intense on my computer. I never actually checked Task Manager, but it wasn't lagging. Like, the game was perfectly fine at 120 frames. On top of that, I could record at the same time without anything lagging, which is very nice. It's a big shame you guys only get to see the video at 30 frames a second. It doesn't look as good as the actual game does, but recording at 60 frames is a nightmare, honestly. Fun fact, the reason I actually make all of my videos 30 frames a second is because the files are so large as is. 60 frames would literally double the size of my files, and of course the upload time. I mean, it already takes like hours to upload my videos, but it could take even longer, which is insane. As you can see here, this is where the new ability I got from that keepsake is extremely helpful. This hellish platforming section. And yes, hellish is the correct word because this was absolutely horrible. I'm actually amazed how well I did it this time. I was just so much happier when I played in easy mode. Actually, wait a minute, I had to do this one in easy mode. That was ridiculous. For some reason, there was no skip when I found it. I think I actually got to this way too early because I didn't have the stick ability yet. Oh right, that was also behind the time door. I remember now. As you can probably tell, it's been a long time since I played the early parts of this game. I've kind of forgotten how it all goes. My brain is just mush at this point. This room that I happen to find later on isn't just a boss room, it happens to be a boss rush, so there's actually several enemies and bosses that spawn in here. It's a super neat thing. Unfortunately, the reward was a pretty much useless memo card. I mean, it was still kind of fun to do though, even though I died the first time. Honestly, the hardest part of the entire fight was just the paintings. These things are a menace, especially when there's two of them like this. Back in biology, I happened to find one of my favorite enemies and references in this game. So apparently these things are parmesans? Whatever the heck those things are. but infected by fungus. I mean, we all know what it's a freaking reference to. That should be super obvious. And I love the sound they make because, you know, chainsaws and everything like that. Still, super awesome little enemy. Also, one of the most annoying because they jump at you and the jump is so hard to dodge or parry. And they can climb on walls. Yeah, pretty fun things. Now, there are a few platforming sections I skipped in easy mode near the end, but this is definitely the worst one I managed to beat. I don't know how long it actually took, but all of the movements here are like pixel perfect. I make any tiny mistake and I die. On top of that, I actually had to clear it twice, the entire thing, because I slammed the ground in the wrong spot, so the second barrier didn't actually break. On top of that, every 3 times I die, I have to refill my health, which costs 50 luminite. Needless to say, I was running out of luminite super quick here. And the crazy part is I didn't get anything super good either. Thankfully, later on, I managed to find another mini boss, and it wasn't crazy difficult. The thing I wanted to note is the memo card I got from it. Essentially, I get a little bit more attack damage the higher my luminite is. This is one of my favorite memo cards, but it's not great, especially right now, because I keep losing all of my luminite since I need to heal. Overall, though, it is really good, but there is still one that I love way more later on. A little bit later, I managed to find the administrator of this area, Lene, I think that's how you pronounce her name. And of course, she's got a super awesome design, like most of the other characters in this area. But of course, she's talking about the boss, the Decomposer. That means I'm gonna have to fight it very soon, aren't I? As a matter of fact, yes, the absolute next section is the boss. It's a giant metal crab. Alright, the Decomposer might be my favorite boss in this game. Besides looking absolutely awesome, the background theme is really good, even though you can't hear it that well because, you know, my sound effects were a bit too loud. Unfortunately, I didn't realize that until the absolute end. Either way, it was a very fun fight and relatively easy. Even though I got hit really hard early on, I still managed to beat it in one try. The Decomposer also has 2 hitboxes, which is very nice, and makes damage relatively easy. There's also 2 grapple points where I can get around the map a bit easier. So overall, I really like this fight. I think it's actually my favorite in the game, besides just the boss itself. The attacks are well telegraphed and relatively easy to dodge, which is very nice. Our reward from that fight is a great view of Lene and her keepsake, which makes me invulnerable for a tiny bit when I use the grapple mechanic, which is very nice. Since that fight is over, I can finally head to the next area, the Aerospace Academy. This place has all sorts of insane platforming and puzzles and stuff like that, so it's gonna be super fun. On the bright side, we quickly meet another one of my favorite characters, Elaine. You can guess all of the reasons I like her so much, and she's got a very nice skin tone. One thing I forgot about for the next part is, yeah, this is one of the bugs I also found, where after boss fights, your UI wouldn't actually appear. As you can obviously see here, I don't have my luminite, I don't have my health, which is obviously important, but I'm guessing they fixed that by now. Another thing that I love about this section, the guide quickly gives us a portal reference, because of course we're going through portals. That's pretty funny. It was also super easy to find the character for the side missions here. Pamir? She's super cute, and I'd probably say her side mission is the most interesting out of all of them. Unfortunately, I'll get to it near the end, but still, it's gonna be super cool. And here's one of the most interesting enemies I've managed to find. That is not a checkpoint, that is actually a mimic. Fighting these things is actually quite fun, their patterns are predictable, but yeah, it's mostly the fact they are mimics of the checkpoints, which is pretty hilarious. You think you're gonna get a safe checkpoint, but no, it's actually an enemy. As annoying as they are, I actually like them quite a bit. Another mini boss I happened to face, it was actually super cool because he kind of like teleports. I mean, obviously that's quite annoying at first, but his patterns are relatively predictable. Even if I'm losing horribly, you could probably see that. I actually died and I had to use my save point, or whatever that thing is called. I needed that to actually win. Yeah, still pretty cool boss and enemy. It also teaches you that mechanic, because that's going to come in handy very soon with the next main boss. But most important of all, I finally unlock another ability. You've probably noticed all these metal grates, and they're getting way more common. So, this power allows me to actually go through those. It's called Liquefy. I pretty much turn into a giant slime, and I can go through those platforms. I can also liquefy with the grapple points to get insane range and speed, and, most important of all, go through all of these freaking grates. After even more exploring, I decided to go and face Eddie, and Elaine. Yeah, so she's got a freaking mech. I don't know how I'm supposed to have a chance against her, but let me just say, this is one of the most difficult fights I faced. It took me countless attempts to actually win, and it's gonna be a while before I actually, do win. It is very interesting seeing my first fights with this, because it's crazy just how well my mechanics actually evolved in this fight. Like, my parry timing got so much better near the end. I knew which attacks can and can't be dodged. I stopped playing chicken with her bullets, but it's a very neat fight overall. My favorite phase is obviously with the one with all of the mines, because you can actually destroy them with your attacks, which is very nice. I can clear out the obstacles, I like that, but yeah, otherwise it's pretty difficult. There are a bunch of attacks that are very difficult to dodge, like the one that sends out 2 slashes on the ground. And I have to say, one funny thing, even though you don't see it here because I died to it, you can actually dodge her gun attack by standing still half the time, which I find hilarious because it's trying to predict where you're gonna go, but you just stand still. Yeah, I'm not ready for this fight though. I need to do some more exploring. I saw this grate and a grapple point, you can probably tell, and I can finally actually go through it, which is cool. Now, this seems to be some sort of culinary area, which is very interesting. I wonder if this is an actual recipe, because it very much does seem like it. And we happen to meet Amber. First of all, she's got an incredible design, and she's got a side mission for us. But yeah, I'm not going to get into the side quest until the absolute end. It's actually one of the coolest. It requires you to manage your temporal coils perfectly to beat it. Alright, I think it gives you like 1 or 2 rooms to spare, but it's pretty tough. I actually kind of like it though. You have to find all the hidden things first, which kind of sucks, but like I said, we'll get to that. Alright, this is potentially one of the most important parts of the map, and where I should also note, again, I'm very stupid and just didn't explore enough. You see, I'm about to discover something very cool. The Fishhead Gang leader. We actually get to meet Captain Fishhead. Not Sailfish herself, but a very important character nonetheless. Pretty much, we need to find all of the gang members, and then they'll actually come back to Arcadia just like all the other characters. This is one of the last few things I managed to do, but not what's important here. I forgot exactly where it is. Yeah, I'll show it later on when I find it. Anyways, somewhere in this exploration area, there's actually the 3rd weapon that you can discover. Obviously, finding the 3rd weapon is extremely important because it does insane damage, and it allows me to clear out those other like black, purple, red wall barriers. So yeah, that would have unlocked so much other stuff for me, but I just didn't find it because, I didn't know where to look. As you can see, since this is my first playthrough, I missed a ton of stuff. So that's like the major thing to note here, because I missed like most of the game by missing out on this weapon. That's one of the biggest losses for me. Since you're probably wondering how I managed to beat Elaine in the end, I actually just got good. That's kind of the crazy part. Of course, you can see I have my extra life from the save point there just in case, but I got really good at parrying all of her attacks, which I am very proud of. That is one thing. Despite how insanely difficult just this difficulty is, it is extremely satisfying when you finally manage to beat it. Oh yeah, I guess I haven't even mentioned the fact that this fight is 2 phases instead of 1. Her first phase is bad enough, but man, when they split up, it is horrible because you get attacks coming from both directions most of the time, which means you gotta decide whether you attack or just defend yourself, and then you're defending the entire time, then yeah, it's a nightmare. Either way, I managed to beat this ridiculous fight in the end. Obviously, I should have better gear at this point, but oh well. Another beautiful illustration. I mean, I think that fight was worth it for this. and her keepsake honestly is kind of worthless unless you seriously need the healing, but it heals you slowly when you're in your liquid form. So maybe outside of fights you can heal all of your health without having to spend Luminite, otherwise not super useful. Now I have access to the Architecture Academy, which is super cool. There's just one tiny issue. This place is filled with even more puzzles and platforming of all sorts, of course. But do you guys remember back when I was in the Art Academy, I actually managed to get down here for a tiny bit. The main problem is that I couldn't go anywhere because of one specific enemy that was blocking me. Well, I pretty much still have the same problem. I can go to most places, but those same enemies are still blocking me. After this relatively difficult boss fight, or mini-boss, I guess, I'm able to finally acquire the last of 6 powers. Pretty much, when I dash, I can now avoid damage, which is extremely important for, all sorts of things. I can avoid these enemies, I can dodge these lasers, it's going to be super helpful for boss fights and stuff like that. Yeah, this is one of the best finds overall. And of course, I can put this newfound ability to use. As you can probably see by this room, there are actually just 2 lasers I have to dodge. Of course, timing can be a bit tricky, and it's hard to tell at first, but you see that purple effect that comes in on me? That's actually showing that the ability has reset. Yes, it has a cooldown, and I didn't learn that until pretty much the end of the run. Would have been good to know at the start, but again, that's just a brain gap. I haven't even managed to find the main character of this place just yet. Once I discovered this room though, oh yeah, I had a feeling. Nothing screams boss fight like a giant elevator now, does it? Even though I still have not upgraded any of my weapons or gear since last boss, I decided why not? Let's see just how bad it really is. Apparently this is Ibis's robot? Ibis? I'll go with Ibis. I think I'm not exactly sure how you pronounce her name. Ibis? Who knows? Either way, this is her robot, and she's kind of trapped inside, apparently, which means we need to defeat it to get her out. And of course, votes and keepsake, but the boss is more important here. For how insanely cool this robot is, I have a serious question for Ibis. Why would she put all of the cores, which are its weak spots, on the outside of the machine? I'm no engineer, but that does not seem like a good idea to me. I'm pretty sure you can all guess that I did not win this fight first attempt. I was doing oddly well for how much I was getting hit by everything, but I really need some sort of upgrade to win this. So I did a bunch of exploring and finally decided to go back to the boss. Literally nothing has really changed, but now I know how this boss works, and this was a classic second attempt win. The second phase of this boss is actually a bit easier, and that's because I can kind of cheese the boss. A little bit at least. You see, whenever you fall off of the platforms, you actually get some invincibility frames, which I accidentally abused to make this fight stupidly easy. I probably would have had a way worse time if I didn't figure that out, but I'm not really complaining because I finally managed to beat this ridiculous fight. Compared to most of the others, especially like Elaine, it's not even that bad. But, the one thing I completely forgot to note that you can see at the end here, the save point doesn't actually carry into the battle, which kind of sucks. Anyways, meet Ibis, maybe like Abis, I don't know. I am terrible at pronouncing names. Either way, she's also got an awesome illustration. That's pretty freaking funny, watching her be launched out of that I'll call it an entry plug. I love my references. And her just being defeated like that. Now that I have the final keepsake, I decided to actually figure out what happens when, you submit all of them. Apparently, the final level, okay, well, I've spoiled everything anyways. The second to final level is apparently on the top of this main room. I actually wasn't expecting that at all. That also very much explains what the 2 grapple points here are for. Awesome. Unfortunately, the only way to access this level is an elevator. And I say unfortunately because every time you want to come back here, you gotta wait for this cutscene. It's extremely annoying. I really wish they would change that. I mean, I guess it's loading the level and all, but still, all other loading screens are super fast. There's all sorts of like crazy story stuff and everything that happens in here, not to mention the insane new enemies you have to deal with. I'll go into this place in a bit more detail later on. Oh, and something crazy interesting that we learned from the lore, that's another part of why I find this game so interesting, is that Kotama isn't actually a human. Well, she's some sort of combination between a human and chronofluid. Yes, a lot of the enemies that we actually fight in that level are chronofluid enemies, which is super cool. Also, the principal is an AI. I mean, we should have all figured that at this point. I wasn't even truly surprised, actually. It's more about who Kotama is and all the other story stuff that was interesting to me. The reason I'm skipping over all of this is because, yeah, this is pretty much where I stopped playing the normal difficulty run. I actually put 15 hours into that, which is ridiculous. There were so many times I wanted to quit, yet for some reason was too stubborn to do so. I wanted to keep going, but this is the fight that broke me, I guess. And it's mostly because I just sucked at dodging some of the attacks. A bunch of them aren't even that horrible. Of course, this was my first attempt, so obviously I just got absolutely rocked. Yeah, just by a couple attacks. That's really embarrassing, actually. Like I've said several times at this point, the main reason I'm doing so horribly right now is because I haven't done enough exploring. I haven't found all the good stuff. Saya, new weapon unlocks all the other rooms. Yeah, all sorts of things I don't have right now. But thankfully, I found those far easier in my second playthrough, which was also on easy mode, which made everything a billion times more fun for me. This difficulty is absolutely not meant for a casual like me. If you're serious and into these games, then sure, you'll probably have fun, but I absolutely did not. Alright, I don't actually have the clip where I got Saya. I thought I did, but here she is in her shop. And this is extremely important because you can get all sorts of goods from her, like I was saying, most important of which is actually cat food. This allows me to unlock all of the cats. There are 5 of them in total, and I don't think I found like the last 3 until the very end, which is pretty crazy. Since we're here, I completely forgot to mention, you see that little robot next to Nito here? Well, Juliet also has a line, that's another reference, but he's a reference to the movie Fight Club. Juliet's line is like, the first rule of the secret film club is that we don't talk about the secret film club. Yeah, I found both of these super funny. I just stopped for a minute when I first realized them, but I haven't mentioned that up until now. I have to say, I think Coco is still one of my favorite characters. I seriously would like to know what her shorts are called, whatever that thing she's wearing. I need to know for scientific reasons. It almost looks like an eye patch thing. If you guys have ever seen like an eye patch bra, those are amazing. But yeah, it kind of looks like one of those. Since I have the correct amount of temporal coils, I can actually go and reach that cat that we saw at the very beginning. I remember the guide saying that it looks like it wants cat food. Now that I finally can get cat food, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's how it actually works. As we get more and more cats, you will actually get some luminite and then like a memo card and something else. I can't remember everything. Still, it's another collectible. And here's the main reason I think you cannot change difficulty during the game. I really wish you could. That would have made it infinitely more fun for me. But some of the puzzles and stuff get changed. Like, look at this. This puzzle was one of the worst for me to do, yet it's extremely easy now. And there's even a teleporter instead. I found that ridiculously funny because like, wow, I don't actually have to do all that stupid puzzling anymore. I can literally just run past everything. This is so much better. I love this game now. I mean, I loved it at the start, of course, it's just the puzzling and difficulty that got me down. But yes, I'm back to loving it in easy mode. So you guys know something funny? I was hoping to show off this fight with Eddie and Elaine that I suffered so much with earlier on. I was like, alright, all of the fights have been an absolute breeze in easy mode. Well, yeah, I was a bit too cocky. First of all, I missed all the puzzles first of all, the section in the middle, which this is extremely annoying if you can't get it right the first try. I failed it horribly, by the way. That's definitely not a good sign. And then I fail like all of the mechanical skill checks and just get absolutely wrecked by her attacks. I don't know why I was kind of playing chicken with the gun attack. I always do. Yeah, that's super embarrassing, by the way. I died to this boss even on easy mode. That just goes to show you how difficult it actually is. The best way to sum up the second playthrough is discovering so many things I haven't seen before just by accident. A lot of them are, of course, just like luminite crystals, but still, I found another cat completely by accident. However, there are a ton of things you pretty much will never find. That's why you need to get the true full unlocked map, and that's at the very end of the game. But you can do it before any of the endings, which is very nice. Alright, it's finally time. This is what I was talking about earlier with the fish head gang, where I found the actual place for the weapon. You know, the third one that unlocks all those other doors. The liquid blade. This thing is easily my favorite weapon. Although I like the parry of the whip hammer because it can parry in all directions. I think these other two weapons can only do one. This thing is still insanely powerful, and of course allows me to open up those doors. And yeah, it's good all around. I was upgrading the spear umbrella at first because I wanted a better defensive option even in easy mode, but yeah, I know what I'm going for now. I need the damage of this thing. The crazy part is I haven't even upgraded this thing, yet it is absolutely shredding. Of course, I'm on easy mode. I have a ton of luminite and that memo card that increases my attack. So obviously the damage is going to be stupid high, but yeah, this thing is pretty awesome. Since I've never been able to access any of these places before, I've discovered so much new stuff. I'm not going to show you guys everything, obviously, but I have found Ibis and, of course, her side mission for the architecture area. It's pretty interesting. I need to go find her robot first, which is going to take a while. Thankfully, some of these side missions do give you a marker occasionally. Other times, you have to look around the entire map to find what you're looking for. It gets pretty annoying. Another super neat thing I managed to get with this new weapon is another one of these paintings. I can't remember if I mentioned this already, but the Art Academy has 4 paintings that you can collect, and they unlock 2 different doors. Now, there's still some other collectibles in this area that I don't figure out how to get to until the very end, but it appears 2 paintings open the first door, and then all 4 open the second. Either way, I will absolutely take that memo card slot. That'll be super helpful. Speaking of memo cards, I have gotten all sorts of really cool ones. There's this ridiculous one called Taste Like Wax. Yep, it sets your health to 1. Yeah, there's no way I'm using that thing, but it increases your damage like crazy. I mean, it's a cool effect for the craziest of players, but yeah, I won't survive with that thing. There's also a really good one that makes you not die to traps, so you can keep trying, which is very nice. But my favorite one, if you saw it there for a second, is actually the axe. This one is crazy powerful. That's because it actually gives you a shield that absorbs 1 hit whenever you trigger a fluid detonation, which is insanely powerful because I do that all the time, and I really need the survivability it grants. So that is easily my favorite memo card. I like the attack, but I cannot deny that level of survivability. Alright, you guys should see just how crazy the difference is from normal difficulty, or recommended, to story, aka easy. Yeah, I absolutely shred this fight, which I was super happy about, because now I'll finally be able to see what is past the final boss fight. That's what I thought this was, at least. Like, it's a massive difficult boss. I seriously thought this was going to be the end. I had no clue what was in store for me, though. There are technically 2 more bosses. Okay, there's one and then there's a secret, so I'm gonna call the first one the true final boss that lets you unlock some of the endings. Yeah, she's got like 3 phases, which is ridiculous and insanely difficult. Even with all of the power I have, I struggled a tiny bit, but we'll see that pretty soon. At this point, I still wasn't at my absolute peak when it comes to performance. I definitely could have done way better. But by the end of this game, you'll see the crazy stuff I can get up to with all of my skills. I'm actually half decent, and I understand a lot better how most of my kit works. What's super interesting is that after beating that boss, Julia comes to meet us. Alright, I didn't expect her, but I guess I should have. She is the president, after all, or student council president, whatever she is. And pretty much, she'll let us become the caramel star if we can answer her trial. Uh-oh, I should have figured this wasn't the final boss. But before I can actually complete her trial, because that unlocks the actual last level, she does say that you're supposed to tie up any loose ends and do everything, because I thought this was going to be like a final, this completes the game when I talk to her. No, you can technically keep going forward, especially because there's an entire other map to explore. But alright, I decided to go back and start looking for everything I've missed. And I think one of the most fascinating places is at the bottom left of the map. First of all, it's filled with mimics, which are stupidly annoying, but that's not what matters here. There's some crazy cool hidden stuff. First of all, an item that actually adds more items to Saya's shop the next time you go to see her, which is very cool. More important than that is this room I discovered. This is Nicklin. She's a writer, and we just have to give her inspiration for the thing she's currently working on. So this confused me for a long time. I will get back to it eventually. Long story short, you actually have to come back here 3 times as fast as you possibly can. It's a little bit annoying because it took me a while to figure that out, but not that bad. One of my most interesting finds was actually behind a temporal coil door. This is Pamir, but not the original one. At least I don't think so. The original Pamir is still back in the other room. This is actually like a fragment of her memory. Whenever she was working on this chrono engine, she pretty much fragmented herself. I guess, cross time. It's gonna hurt my brain if I think about it too much. Anyways, we have to find all 5 of her clones, which can be a bit interesting. Now that I have access to absolutely everywhere on the map, I'm able to do a whole lot of the side objectives for each area, which is very nice. This is the first part of Ibis's mission, which is very interesting. I just have to find her robot, which isn't too difficult. I know that first clip is a bit confusing because I had to return to Ibis and then return to this place. So it's a lot of running back and forth, but that's like all the side objectives in this game. One of the best parts about exploring and finding everything at the end is actually super interesting. I can do so many of these at once because part of this mission actually ties in to the Art Academy side missions. Not the paintings, of course, but the one to actually find Clara, because she is kind of hidden and there's all of that story. First of all, I don't know how I'm so stupid. Only seeing this now, by the way. So, one of the items this mission gives you is a film. All of these films are just like funny references when Juliet explains them to you. It's called P.E. I understand it now. It's a reference to freaking WALL-E. Oh, that's hilarious. I love that. One of the other things I really like about this game, and well, only one other I've seen, but I don't play many anime games actually, is how you can see like the height and birthday of all the characters. I think that's super cool. Now, I will admit, I am used to Archery Code because they also have a third funny detail about the characters, and I sometimes forget that this is just, a normal game. Alright, watch closely, because this is one of the few times where I actually used my brain properly. Do you guys remember Amber all the way earlier? Well, she has a very interesting side quest where we have to get 3 items in the correct amount of time. That's not exactly going to be easy, because your time is kind of limited, but if you're smart enough, you can actually manage it. And thankfully, there are chrono blooms in some areas of the map where you can actually break those, and it puts your time 1 hour back, and it makes certain objectives like these way easier. But for Amber's mission, all we need to do is find these 3 birds. Once you find them on the map, they are marked there, so it's a tiny bit easier to get to, but the whole deal is that you have to find all 3 of these birds before 12:30. I think you don't get much time, which means you don't have many levels to go through. So you have to find and get all these things very quickly. Thankfully, of course, you can use Arcadia to get around the map way faster, and that's what you literally have to do, or else there's no other way to beat the side mission. Of course, just remember remember, you can't actually use the rewinder because that will reset your temporal time. You actually have to do this all in one go. I know, it's very tough to control the ADHD and not hit the temporal coil right there. Trust me, it is extremely difficult to hold back the urge to just hit that thing to reset time like I would usually do, but no, I can't do that. I need to go find all these birds first. This side mission is relatively easy once you figure out all of the locations of these things. This part also requires some careful planning because you still have to get to Amber in the end, so you don't really get a lot of time to spare. I think it might just be like 1 or 2 rooms you get, really. Of course, I found the one Chrono Bloom, so I had a bit of extra time. But yeah, with all 3 of the items finally collected, I can head back to Amber just barely in time. Have I mentioned how much I love the background theme to this place yet? Because I absolutely love it. It's like a weird, wacky theme. It's even got like a rubber duck sound effect in it. I really hope that the developers release like the soundtrack to this, you know, an official soundtrack. I would love to listen to a lot of these themes. Maybe even use them in future videos, if they allow that. Yeah, I think everyone's gonna be screaming at me. I don't know how I didn't see that earlier, but this is one of the most important things I've found. Well, would you look who it is? It is Clara herself. Now, you have to find her awakening orb, which is possible. I went and found that, but the most interesting thing is you need other stuff to complete this mission. That's why, when I was saying earlier it's good to do all this at the end, well, funnily enough, the whole robot with Ibis thing that I just completed actually ties into Clara's missions, which is super interesting, because she says she needs to be here to control all of these hibernation pods, so we can't take her out until we find a way to do so. But thankfully, the chip we got from Ibis's mission actually lets us do this, which is very interesting. Slightly annoying if you find her early on, because you won't be able to do this until near the end of the game, but I don't have to worry about that. Fictitious stages can never replace the real world. Dang, this game has a lot of good dialogue, I have to say. I mean, I think that's true for a lot of, like, Eastern games, I guess. I will admit I haven't played many, but I love all the ones I do. Like Persona, Azure Lane, Arc Recode, and of course Kotama. All of these games have just the best writing I've ever seen. Compare that to a lot of new Western games where the writing is the worst stuff people have ever seen. Yeah, there's a crazy difference between the two. I also managed to find Clara's portrait at the end of that section, and that unlocks the second reward of the painting area. Of course, I still need to figure out how to get the place up there, and there's one more place right below me, which is literally the last thing I managed to find. So it'll be a while before that. The Sailfish Gang members that you have to find are also scattered all around the map. On top of that, all of them are time sensitive, so you usually have to reset your temporal coils before you go and find them, assuming you even know where they are in the first place. They can be quite a hassle to find. Do you guys see this garbage? Look, I had no clue this was a teleporter until just now. I've ran through this room so many times, yet it's taken me this long to actually find it. That's a bit ridiculous. On top of that, there's some very stupid pixel perfect dashing that you have to do here, but always think about the bright side. It's very interesting to find a brand new area I've never managed to see before, especially when it's a massive level like this area. This place, or at least one of the levels in it, contains another one of our wacky side characters, Galileo. I never thought I would see that as a girl's name. Then again, all other sorts of characters. But still, I think she's a neat character, and she's obsessed with aliens, which is why she's kind of locked in here as punishment, because it's forbidden here. I find that hilarious. And her entire side mission is to get all of the sailfish messages on the entire map, which is insane, by the way. There's like 32 of them, and I think I've gotten most of them at this point. There's still like 1 or 2 I haven't found. Thankfully, this mission does mark the messages that you haven't found. These aren't the cube pieces of lore that you'll find everywhere and at the start of this area. It's actually the spear umbrellas that are like lodged in random places and have the trails out of them. Those are sailfish lore pieces, something like that. Even though I find them very interesting, I don't remember all the specific lore that well. Of course, my brain is still jam at this point, and it's best if you play the game for yourself to see all of those. Now that I've gotten some cats, as you can see, there's actually a new cat room in Arcadia, which is pretty hilarious, I have to say. Everyone loves cats. We all know that. It's also nice to see all the other characters here. That's another one of the best parts of this game. You just get to see the train fill up with all sorts of the characters that you found and help out. The only thing I will say that's a tiny bit sad is revisiting old areas and seeing all the characters just leave there. It feels so dead and empty without them. But when you return home, it's all happy again and everyone's here. So a while later, I managed to get the last Sailfish entry, and of course, Galileo believes Sailfish is an alien. I mean, there's a lot of good evidence. I'm not going to spoil who Sailfish is just yet, but she's certainly a super interesting character, I have to say. Oh yeah, I think I've forgotten to mention this. There are also a few doors throughout the map that require you to have a certain amount of boats before you can access them. Like this one. I think this is like the third, probably last one, I can't remember, but it requires you to have at least 36% of the votes. Now that I finally have more than that, I can actually cross it and, well, figure out what's behind it. Not by complete accident, but through a ton of exploring, I finally managed to find Claire. Very interesting design. I'm not used to Claire being spelled like that. I'm used to her name having an I in it, but still, very interesting. Of course, she's extremely sick because of the chrono fungus, which normally shouldn't infect people, but she's a special case. Oh well, we're just gonna have to go find something. Unfortunately, it took me a very long time to find this thing, because it's like the last room I found in this place. Go figure. Yeah, it's this tiny little room I didn't even know existed. Of course, there are a couple of doors like this, which I think are really stupid, because you can only enter them in your slime form, and some require you to fall down as a slime, or that liquid form, whatever. It was ridiculously difficult to find, but whatever. I can finally finish up Claire's side quest. And in case you're wondering why I'm going crazy, yes, I've literally spent hours looking at the entire map, attempting to figure out any and all potential hidden zones. I've literally taken screenshots and then, thrown them into paint and crossed out every single area after exploring it thoroughly, even though I still missed a couple of the most hidden things. But thankfully, that's all I had to do for Claire's mission. There's nothing else crazy that I need. And of course, Flora and Claire will now join us on the Arcadia. As you can see here, I've been doing some crazy Tetris, which is funnily enough the perfect term, to load out my memo card. And I'd say it's about perfect at this point. I've gotten all sorts of crazy buffs and healing, which I very much enjoy. At this point, honestly, I think I would be okay with playing the recommended difficulty now that I understand all of the hidden places and the third weapon, all the memo cards. But honestly, I still say that the easier difficulty is much more fun all around, especially when it comes to platforming. Oh yeah, this guy from earlier. I have now tried to kill this thing twice and literally just left the area because I couldn't figure out how you beat this stupid thing. I still don't know. There's got to be a proper smart way to do this, probably with one of the weapon abilities, but me being me, I just brute forced, tried everything until I actually found a way that worked. I know I've said this in other videos, but one of my favorite quotes, which if it's stupid, but it works, it's not stupid. Of course, it's a ridiculous little saying, but I always like it because that's exactly how I do things. I believe you only have to come back to this room with Nicklin like 3 times, the first 2, and then on the 3rd time, you get this script, and funny thing, you give it back to her, and that's what she decides to use. Or I guess you convince her to use it. Either way, all that really matters is that I can finally get her back to Arcadia. Also, I think I really like the name Nicklin. It's a very unique name that doesn't sound completely ridiculous. Since I have most of the side characters at this point, not counting the Sailfish Gang, Ray actually gives me one of the other films. Now, I still need a few more before I can complete all of those. I think there's like 10 in total, but I'm getting very close to finally getting all of the collectibles. I still have quite a way though, and it only took me like over 20 hours to finally realize in the map there's actually this option where if you press X in my case, it switches the display and shows you the percentage of completed areas. Well, that would have been a great help. That also very much shows me that there's still something else, because I'm at 92%, but there's still a lot I can explore. And that's how I kind of figured there had to be something else beyond the map. There is one final level I haven't gotten to yet. I did return to Julia one more time before I went exploring even further. This is just to give her a bunch of the films that I found. And, you know the ridiculous thing? She has half of the votes, 50%. That is insane. I didn't realize I'd gotten all the films at this point, but I'm glad I did. Unfortunately, I don't know what else she said here because it's all in Mandarin. I can't really read that. I mean, I'm bad enough at English, and that's my main language. After that, I went to explore for a little while, but since I couldn't find anything, I decided to just continue on and complete her trial. So, at the top of this level, another portal actually opens that lets me access the final level. It's very similar to this level, which is pretty nice. I think it shares the same theme. I can't remember at this point, but the theme of this level might be like the central theme, but sped up. It's one of the other themes, just faster. That's all I know. The final level has a lot of the stuff I haven't found yet, and that's why I've been missing so much. It makes sense now. And yes, you guys read that right, by the way. Docking platform? The Kotama Academy is actually a spaceship. That's insane. I did not expect that entire plot twist, but it's extremely interesting. Speaking of interesting, the place in the spaceship is actually like locked in time, so you don't lose your temporal coils when you move between levels. So that's pretty neat. And the best part of the entire place, this map. Once you collect the map for the ship, it actually unlocks the entire map for real. And this is pretty awesome because now I can finally, after almost like 24 hours or something like that in, well, total, that's probably like 13 or something hours in this second playthrough, I can explore the rest of the map and collect absolutely everything. So I stumbled into the final area. It should be pretty obvious what this place is. It's a boss arena. So I was speaking with Juliet, and I decided to accept her plan. I think I said it earlier, but this game actually has 3 separate endings. This just happens to be one of them, where you launch the giant spaceship Caramel, and yeah, that's the ending. You abandon Earth because it's kind of going downhill fast because of the chrono fluid, or something like that. I mean, it's a cute ending, and it's supposed to be happy. At least that's what it seems like. You just trust that Juliet knows what she's doing, and she's doing the right thing. Thankfully, once you complete one of the endings, you can just load right back up into your save, which is very nice. I'm glad it doesn't completely kill that run because I still have a lot to explore. Well, not a lot, just a few things I've managed to miss, which are all incredibly important. So, this thing I've managed to miss twice at this point, by the way. First time because I didn't realize it was there, even though I did this puzzle already. Second time because I didn't have to do the puzzle. So this is that little room above the painting rewards. That's cool and all, but what about the room beneath it? I swear, I spent so long trying to figure out how to get in there, yet I just can't. It took me a super long time of trying, and obviously failing, before I finally realized what it was. The way to get up there is from below, and I actually need to use the liquid form to get enough speed to get into that door. For the longest time, I thought you just came down into this room, not used it as a way to go up. Anyways, this is a massive puzzle section that I want no part of. Thankfully, I can just skip through it, which is very nice. I appreciate that. There's no way I want to actually do all of this. That seems ridiculous. especially when you see me just teleport through the level, how much there is. Yeah, no thank you, not for me. What's very bizarre is the final room of this place. It's an art gallery. It's got all the administrators and stuff like that. Black Hollow Knight, which is, well, Hollow Knight reference, I'm guessing. Caramel, Clara's Nocturne. Yeah, I don't know all of these references. I still find this art super cool. I really like the Lene one. Of course, Elaine's one is still probably the best. And by the way, that is the exit right there. I knew that little flap was an exit, I was just wondering for where. But look at that map. Isn't it beautiful? I almost have 100%. I'm getting very close. I just need to get the final stuff from the ship at the top. Now that I've collected the last few things, it's time to go for the ending. I wanted to try something a bit different this time though. The first option of trusting Juliet is the first ending, or one of the three at least. One of the other options is to reject her plan. Naturally, this means we have to fight her. I should have figured. I mean, I knew we'd have to fight her at some point. Being the technical final boss, there's still the secret boss I'll get to later on. She is insanely difficult and has some wild attacks. I chewed through her first phase, but look at this. Look at what her second phase does. Oh, so she just casually can stop time? She has the power of the world? Seriously? Although I will admit, that is a very cool feature for a fight. I know that there's some other boss in Terraria. I think it's like Fargo's Souls that has it. Very cool ability, of course. One ability that is not cool in the slightest is setting my health to 0. That's just absolutely rude. Like, one-shotting my health bar is bad enough, but her doing it without me being able to parry or dodge? Yeah, that's just mean, honestly. I can't imagine how this fight would be on any other difficulty, because I'm barely managing it right here. She's got a ton of attacks that are either impossible to dodge or very difficult. The attack that just sets your health to 0, honestly, maybe I don't want to imagine now. And yes, this is one of those parts where you're forced to press a button to continue, just like at the beginning. I believe she's also the only boss that has like 3 total phases instead of just 1 or 2, which is very interesting. The third phase is especially interesting because there's no solid ground. You can actually fall below. However, if you guys remember the world mover from the beginning, this makes things very interesting, because I can kind of use that as a buffer. But I definitely have to say, her difficulty is pretty fitting for a final boss, even considering how much I'm struggling with it right now. I am completely max build, I have everything I can, and I have an insane amount of Luminite, so I have crazy damage. I'm still doing this bad. I swear my mechanics have gotten better, I promise you. It just doesn't show that well. It's actually quite insane that I got down to my last life jade in that fight. I did not expect that at all, but that just goes to show you the difficulty of this, even on easy mode. In the end though, we've managed to defeat Juliet for the last time, and I have to say, I think I've changed my mind. That might be the best defeat illustration in the game. I have a feeling it's just the position she's in that makes it so interesting. Anyways, we have 2 very interesting options. We can continue and trust her plan, but that's what I did earlier. So the other thing I can go ahead and do is absorb the power and save everyone. Okay, so not exactly save everyone, but stay on Earth instead and try to repair it, which I think is a very good ending as well. Both of these are great. So this is definitely the very good ending. The other one, I'm not sure, probably somewhere in the middle, but the ending cutscene is very beautiful, I have to say. The art in this game is insanely good, and normally I would absolutely scroll through the credits for the first time. It wasn't scrolling though. I was trying a bunch of things, it just didn't work. I'm hoping they fixed that by now. I want to give credit to all of these awesome developers. I still don't have absolutely everything though. I'm literally missing 0.01% of the votes. And of course the secret boss fight and the third ending, so I'll be back in a little bit. Unfortunately, I forgot to save my progress after I fought her that first time, which means I'm gonna have to fight her one more time. Not technically. Actually, I'm not sure. To get the secret boss, I think you still need to do this fight, I believe. A bit after returning to Arcadia, the guide tells me something interesting. I received a message from Sailfish. I read through it a bit too quickly, so I actually missed where we have to go. It's the Genesis. I kind of figured at the beginning, but I did look back to make sure. Yes, we gotta go to the Genesis. That level I found relatively early on, full of all the pods, looked super scary. It makes sense. The secret boss of this game is Sailfish herself. We saw her a lot at the beginning, but nothing throughout the rest of the game. I only knew about all of these extra things and secret bosses because of looking at the achievements. And, excuse me? Did she just say there can only be one Kotama? Wait a minute. You're kidding me, right? Sailfish, the one who's been trying to stop us. I mean, not really, but this is Kotama. Well, I guess we do have, like, chrono fluid and timelines at play here, so it kind of makes sense. I thought she would be doing a whole lot more to stop us then. But honestly, compared to Juliet being the final boss, Sailfish isn't as bad, I would say. I mean, just look how much I'm shredding her in this fight compared to Juliet. Honestly, there was nothing insane about this fight either. Sailfish actually has a lot of similar attacks to the other followers, I guess. And considering I fought those guys hundreds of times at this point, I knew pretty much how everything worked, which means I could get plenty of parries, dodges, all that good stuff. I'm actually starting to use my active abilities a lot now too. I hope this is a half-decent example of my mechanics getting way better at the end. I mean, I'm managing to keep up my health a lot in this fight, which is crazy compared to how I started out. You know, the most insane thing I haven't even mentioned up until this point. It was really early on, especially in that first playthrough. I played for about like 5+ hours, not in one sitting obviously, but throughout the day for my first recording. Since I haven't played on controller in a while, and I've never played anything this intense, my hands were literally throbbing in pain the entire day and night. That's how bad it got. That's one of the reasons I wanted to quit so early on. And also, it goes to show how difficult the beginning of the game really was, especially for me. I would have much preferred to play it on mouse and keyboard from the start. I definitely think I could have, but I just wanted to note that. That's how much effort I put into this game, that my hands were just in an incredible amount of pain for the rest of the day, just to play this. Anyways, we've finally beaten Kotama and pull off her mask to reveal, well, Kotama. I guess we shouldn't exactly be surprised, that's who she said she is, but it's weird to just see her like this. Anyways, our Kotama says that we can just exist together. I think that's a pretty cute ending to this fight. The coolest part is that Sailfish gives us a new rewinder. Technically an old one, but whatever. It allows us to enhance motor and cognitive functions. I wonder what that could mean. It's almost like we get the ability to slow down time now too. It's not exactly like that. Fun fact, I never really tested it in combat. I guess I should have. But it looks like I can speed up my attacks and everything like that like crazy, which is super cool. So again, I guess you guys should play the game and see for yourself. I don't know 100% how this works. Still a very cool mechanic. I don't know where I'd use it, considering I just beat the game. Maybe you could use it for the Juliet fight, but who knows. Alright, so this is technically my last clip. Unfortunately, this is the sad ending I found. I actually went into the principal's office, you know, that boss fight room. So yeah, you can just stop the game here, and that is the sad ending of this game. I didn't expect that. It was really sad because that was the last clip. I'd already completed everything else. And you kind of just leave everything behind. At least I have 100% on everything. Yeah, I totally did not expect that. But hey, I guess I found all the endings. But with that, I have all of the achievements in this game. Before you say I technically don't, look at the last achievement. Finish the game on challenge difficulty. No, absolutely not. There is no universe where you can pay me enough money to do that. Never. No. And considering the last achievement requires you to have that one as well, I'll go ahead and say, yes, I have all the achievements for this game. I 100% beat Kotama and Academy Citadel. I'm happy. I absolutely love this game. Of Of course, I seriously appreciate this opportunity from 2P Games. Kotama and Academy Citadel was extremely fun to play, mostly once I played it in easy mode, then I liked it a whole lot more. The characters are all amazing, the graphics absolutely beautiful. I love both the 2D art and the 3D art, and it works perfectly together like this. I absolutely would recommend this game. For most people, just play easy mode. It's infinitely more fun. But this game is definitely made for the hardcore, crazy, Elden Ring, Dark Souls type players that just hate themselves and love these hard difficulties. So, of course, I wanted to say a very, very special thank you to 2P Games and Valeria, I hope I'm not butchering your name, I'm sorry if I am, from Clout Boost for sending me this game to play, and especially early. That was awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hope this video does well and gets the game even more sales. That would be great. Well, thank you all for watching. I really appreciate it. And of course, another special thank you to my channel members. This is going to be Enzo from Lookintogaming signing out.